But that flotilla has made a difference. It's made an enormous difference. It woke the world up in a way that they've not been woken up for a very long time, in exactly the same way, and I agree with George Galloway on this. Those of us old enough to remember the anti-apartheid campaigns, remember Sharpeville, remember the Rivonia treason trials, remember Steve Biko, remember the riots in Soweto. All of those were significant turning points that changed world opinion. And I think that flotilla has changed world opinion. Why are they dependent on tunnels to bring through the other things that one needs to sustain life?
America will not do anything like that, because they more or less the same as Israel. And why people think the Arabs first are not capable of themselves in Middle East to get rid of this disease from the region. I mean, they were in Lebanon. They occupied Lebanon till Hezbollah decided to throw them out. And that's the only way people of Middle East have to do it.
Okay,
not
Mehdi,
Obama,
I think we've...
not the British.
Can I stop you there? I think we've got your point. Thank you for your call.
Mr. Corbyn, do you agree that the State of Israel has the right to exist?
Sorry?
Do you agree that the State of Israel has the right to exist?
Yes, the State of Israel exists, of course.
Do you support the UK's continued full and active membership of NATO? Jeremy, we're back with you.
Well, we are members of NATO, and therefore we are part of it.
Surely it's up to us to oppose NATO and also to strongly oppose this NATO exercise in the Ukraine, because their interests in the Ukraine are not benign interests. The ordinary people in this country don't want wars, don't want NATO.
The NATO leadership were very keen to appease their friends in the arms industry and expand their ideas and expand their operation. President Bill Clinton, for all his peace credentials in opposition to the Vietnam War, was the main driver behind NATO's eastward expansion to get Poland, Hungary, Czech Republic, Slovak Republic and others into NATO membership. They then wanted to take NATO even further east. But NATO needed a rationale, it needed a reason, it needed to present to the world that somehow or other it was a legitimate, valid organisation. So it usurped the UN to get involved in the Balkans War. Closed down NATO.
And say that tomorrow evening it will be my pleasure and my honour to host an event in Parliament where our friends from Hezbollah will be speaking. I'd also invited the friends from Hamas to come and speak as well. Unfortunately, the Israelis would not allow them to travel here, so it's going to be only friends from Hezbollah. So far as I'm concerned, that is absolutely the right function of using parliamentary facilities to invite people from other parts of the world.
Let's briefly talk about foreign affairs. Why did you call Hamas and Hezbollah your friends?
What I did was spoke at a meeting in which I said I wanted all people involved in the Middle East issue to come together and be able to have a discussion, to be able to discuss. Can you allow me to finish?
The idea that an organisation that is dedicated towards the good of the Palestinian people and bringing about long-term peace and social justice and political justice in the whole region should be labelled as a terrorist organisation by the British government is really a big, big historical mistake. And I would invite the government to reconsider its position on this matter.
Does it mean I agree with Hamas and what it does? No. Does it mean I agree with Hezbollah and what they do? No. What it means is that I think to bring about a peace process, you have to talk to people with whom you may profoundly disagree.
And a district judge duly authorised an arrest warrant for Livni. Apparently, the Foreign Office is embarrassed by this because it will stop friendly leaders, i.e. Israeli leaders, visiting this country. So they want to instead change the law to make it a requirement that a prosecution can only be done on the authority of the Attorney General, thus bringing it straight away into the political arena. If this thing comes up, we will mount the strongest possible parliamentary action against it, and we'll need to mount a very big action against it outside, because it is simply wrong that we should interfere against people who are guilty of human rights abuses, and they should therefore face trial as a result of it.
We would like to congratulate you on the 35th anniversary of the revolution that was led by Imam Khomeini.
I thought it was a very interesting address.
and it's one that I wish a much larger number of people in this country could have heard, because he was describing the history and traditions of Islam, but he was also describing the inclusivity, the tolerance and the acceptance of other faiths, other traditions and other ethnic groupings within Iran. And I think that's something that most people in the West simply do not understand. We then had the isolation of Iran, we've had the sanctions against Iran, we've had the military threats against Iran, we've had the demonization of Iran.
So why are we still allowing trade to go on between Europe and Israel? Why did Barack Obama present another $150 million to Israel to build a new missile defense system? And we will not allow our governments to go on with this cosy relationship, this cosy law-breaking relationship with this rogue state that is destroying the lives of so many people.
Our Jewish friends are no more responsible for the actions of Israel or the Netanyahu government than our Muslim friends are for those various self-styled Islamic states or organizations.
You don't have to be Einstein to work it out. The Abu Ghraib and Guantanamo and Fallujah and Baghdad and Najaf and Karbala are connected to King's Cross and London and the terrible events that happened here.
And we have to recognize that the security of this country is at risk. It's at risk because of the way we inflict an insecurity on so many other people around the world. We have to be very clear about that.
A period of silence for Alan Henning and all those others that have died in this appalling conflict. Because we have to remember them and remember that the price of war, the price of intervention, the price of jingoism is somebody else's son and somebody else's daughter, either being killed or being killed by somebody else.
But I think the wider issue is that the EU has got very close to NATO. NATO has been pushing very hard to expand eastwards. Inevitably, Russia is going to get very nervous if NATO sets up bases all around its borders. That, in turn, encourages Russian militarism. Can't we go back to the point where Ukraine was a nuclear-free country that was not going to be a member of any alliance, either with Russia or with NATO? But I'm quite alarmed by the way in which the NATO General Secretary seems to be ramping up the ante all the time. The West has no moral authority whatsoever to lecture on this.
It's not enough for the Western powers to simply express regrets and talk in honeyed terms about disproportionate action. We need action to condemn absolutely the act of war by Israel against the Palestinian people. And we also need to say to Israel, you cannot call yourself a democracy when you imprison the elected leaders of the Palestinian people. And when you signed that special trade agreement between Israel and the European Union, that had within it a human rights clause. You have broken that human rights clause. End the trade with Israel.
So what if the Sharia conditions for stoning were
This
met?
has nothing to do with the education. Let's look at the education.
No, but that's what's being taught in the schools. So if the Sharia
schools.
conditions for stoning the adulterer were met,
being taught in
then is that something in principle we should condone?
It's not being taught in schools.
You do condemn the amputation of hands and the stoning to death.
If it's not according to a due process of law in any situation,
So if it's by due process, it's okay to stone people to death?
The fact is that these things are not taught in schools.
No, Ibrahim, sorry, if by due process, is it okay to stone people to death by due process?
This thing is not taught in schools, and that's what we're here to discuss.
If his teacher is unable to condemn stoning in principle or chopping off the hand in principle, I worry for the future of my son. Please set an example as an educationalist and come out and say that you stand for human rights and values, liberal values.
You're right to worry, because these things should have no place in school, because children don't understand these things. You know as well as I do.
But you can't condemn on national television.
As well as I do that it's a very, very complex issue.
But it's very telling that in the wake of Cast Lead, the Israeli Foreign Ministry actually issued a directive to the Hasbara people, the propaganda people around the world, you know, start placing articles, start placing programs. So they were very confident that they had the ability and the people in place to be able to do that. Now that to me said a lot. If they can just basically give this directive and all these sleepers all of a sudden wake up and start doing things. But there are clearly people in positions of influence who are able to do this. I cannot just phone the BBC up.
Personally, a very big thank you to Interpol for its work over a very long period of time. I've got to know Ibrahim Hewitt, the chair, extremely well, and I consider him to be a very good friend.
The bottom line where Israel is concerned is that there is no bottom line where Israel is concerned. They have a public relations department in their government that is Teflon coated beyond belief.
His relationship, the government's relationship, to one of their strongest funders, a gentleman known as Poju Zabludowicz, who I understood supported the Conservative Party quite strongly with financial donations, and also supports and is, I think, a trustee of the Board of Deputies and the Community Security Trust. And you have this mixture, a melee, a circular relationship where money seems to be spent on the Conservative Party donations, funding for the election campaigns and so on. And now there seems to be a relationship whereby those same actors are now having a special relationship with government and are able to directly influence government policy. And I think that the only way that we're going to get to the bottom of this as to how Theresa May is making these exclusion decisions is by an independent, judge-led inquiry commissioned under the Inquiries Act 2005.
Could I just add to that I think the public inquiry under the Public Inquiries Act is the best course of action to take, because normally one would have said that the appropriate select committee in Parliament should undertake this inquiry, but I think the issues go far wider than just the parliamentary procedure. They go to the heart of what's going on in the Home Office and the way in which government takes decisions. So I strongly support that.
Wenn der Al-Quds-Tag hier in Berlin von Demonstranten begangen ist, dann ist es eine Sache aller Demokratinnen und Demokraten, dagegen auf die Straße zu gehen. Der Al-Quds-Tag geht zurück auf den iranischen Revolutionsführer Khomeini, der ihn ausgerufen hat, Jerusalem frei zu machen von Juden.
Thank you, friends. Thank you for inviting me here today, and thank you all for being here today, Al-Quds Day, in solidarity with the people in Jerusalem and the people all over Palestine.
Let's have our third nominee, please.
Oh, Charlie Hebdo.
And the winner for the International Islamophobe of the Year is, you guessed it, Charlie Hebdo.
Charlie Hebdo, the winner, ladies and gentlemen. No, we missed one.
This is a bomb.
Ooh.
This is a fuse.
Ooh. And hopefully it will blow up in your hand. So, no one from Charlie Hebdo could make it.
Islamic Human Rights Commission represents all that's best in Islam. I like the way it works. I like the sense of values surrounding it.
يعني أنا أذكر في المرحلة الثانوية في سنوات من المرحلة الثانوية علمنا معلم يهودي كان يعلمنا اللغة العبرية، ولكن هذا كان أمر استثنائي جدا.
كيف كانت علاقتكم معه؟
ففي اليوم الذي كان هذا المعلم سيأتي لأول مرة بعد الحرب وسيدخل إلى الصف، ماذا فعل بعض الطلاب منا؟ في حينه قاموا ورسموا على اللوح بخط كبير، قاموا على اللوح ورسموا بخط كبير الصليب المعكوف، وانتظرنا دخول المعلم. نعم، فدخل المعلم كالعادي، هو ما كان ينظر إلى اللوح، دخل إلى الصف وجلس على الكرسي أمامنا. فأحد الطلاب الأشقياء قال: يا أستاذ، ما هذه الإشارة التي موجودة على اللوح؟ أنا لا أفهمها. فنظر المعلم أذكر فغضب.
The revelations that the Home Secretary
made this peremptory decision on the basis, I suspect, of prejudice rather than fact, and on that used her very considerable powers as Home Secretary to introduce an order which prevented Sheikh Salah from coming to Britain, and his denigration by large sections of the British media and quite a lot of members of Parliament. And I hereby renew my invitation to Sheikh Salah to come to Parliament, meet with me, meet with my colleagues, and you will be assured a very warm welcome, and I look forward to giving you tea on the terrace, because you deserve it.
Those lawyers in this country that bravely and correctly sought an arrest warrant for Tzipi Livni, who was Foreign Minister at the time, used international humanitarian law to achieve that.